Hi and welcome everyone back to the channel. I'm Carlos. Now in my day I have worked on a lot of really cool projects, but I can't say that I have been as excited as being able to work on Anamorphia 2 by Josh Yeo. Similar to what I did with this CarTune Karaoke, I turned this original video into this clip, and here's the proof. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it felt pretty good to see my name on a project that was so well received by the YouTube community, but being completely honest, it was a stroke of luck. But you know what they say, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. This is the perfect moment to talk about staying busy with your own projects, because in those projects, you're gonna learn the skills that you can then bring over to other things. For example, Anamorphia 2. Now, even though the CarTune Karaoke is more of a silly cartoon thing, I was able to translate those skills into something a little more futuristic like Anamorphia 2. If you're new around here, consider subscribing, because on this channel what we're doing is we're taking a look at different animation and filmmaking techniques and sharing them so we can learn how to basically live our life and tell our own stories. In this video, what I'm going to do is show you guys how I use duct tape to help me with my visual effects. But first, and welcome back. Let's take a second to talk about Josh Yeo. If you haven't checked out his channel yet, you should, because it's just jam-packed with a lot of really helpful information for like the single filmmaker, like, I don't know, many of us are. But the cool thing that he does is he takes things as simple as a gimbal or a lens or a Peter McKinnon photography bag, and he makes them look super sexy. It's not just a commercial, but it's a film. And I know there have been comments on some of his projects where people are saying, oh, this is just a commercial. Yeah, but is it really just a commercial though? It might be a commercial, but at least he brings so much film technique to it that you kind of forget that he's selling you. And one of the cool things that I really do like about both of these Anamorphia films is that, come to find out, they're a scavenger hunt. So he takes his film and then leads you through a lot of the tutorials that he's created and even some of the films that he's created. And then you can see that the tips that he's sharing with you, he's using on his own projects. And a lot of times he's out there doing it all by himself. Josh caught my attention with the first Anamorphia film, so it was kind of a big deal for me to be able to help out with the Anamorphia 2 film. But at the end of both of these films, because Josh took us through all of his tutorials and some of his films, not only was I incredibly motivated, but now I accidentally had a whole bunch more filmmaking techniques and tips in my head that I was able to then leverage for my own stuff. But let's go ahead and take a look at the original video again. Notice all of the camera movements in this shot. Do you notice anything missing? If you've done any kind of motion tracking, you will instantly notice that there aren't really any motion dots. Well, there's no motion dots at all. But that's where CarTune Karaoke comes in handy. Let's go to the car so I can show you what I'm talking about. Okay, let's take a look at what we have here. We have the GoPro, and it is connected with a suction cup to the speedometer area, and then the coffee holder is holding the microphone that is then pointed at my face. And all I need to do is plug this into the side here of this. There we go. So now we're able to use the Rode Video Mic Pro with the GoPro. And if you didn't know this, GoPro has an app that you can use on your phone to then control the camera and see what's happening. So that leads us to the only thing that we have left, which is the duct tape. We're gonna use this duct tape for our motion tracking dots. And all I'm gonna do is grab just a little bit like this. It needs a shave, and all I'm gonna do is stick that to the side, stick that to the seat right there. And now we just go driving around, and I'm gonna try to get some bumps. So when we go back to the computer, we actually have some motion that will be tracked. All right, here we go. Oh, here's a good bump. I wanted to get a good bump so we can track this dot. That's kind of a really big bump. So yeah, so now that we have some footage with our dot right here, and it's really important now that we're just driving around, it's really important to remember to try to not block the dot from the camera, because what would end up happening is when you go into After Effects, the After Effects might get tripped up if it doesn't see the dot all the time. So anyway, I think that's enough footage for now. I'll see you back by the computer. Okay, so now that we're inside, what I ended up doing was taking the footage off of the GoPro and bringing it onto the computer, and then creating a new After Effects file and importing the video into that After Effects file. Then what I did was grab the video file and dragged it down to create a new composition. Next thing that I want to do is go up to where it says Layer, New, Null Object. Basically, a null object is just imagine an invisible empty container that you can apply things to and link things to. So in this instance, what we're going to do is do the motion tracking and apply that data to the null object, and then we're going to add things to the stage and then link the movements of those assets to the null object. Make sense? Let's take a look. First thing I want to do is hit return and say motion data. Now let's click on the video. If you notice, I am on the default panel in After Effects. If we come over to all the way to the right, we see all of these panels here, and we have the tracker panel. So click on that and then click on track motion. What that's going to do is give us this little track point. And if you notice, this is the original composition, and we went into the actual footage. So you're actually tracking the footage, not the composition. We'll talk more about that later. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, and you see how it says track point. I'm actually able to click and make these boxes bigger. And if you notice, right in the middle, there's a plus sign. What that plus sign says is everything here, focus on this area. The inside box is saying really focus in here. This is the color, or this is the, in our case, the dot is the area that we want tracked. And then this bigger box is basically saying, pay attention to this area. But I don't know if After Effects actually uses anything outside that big box to track. But this is like a 3-level thing that they do. The plus sign is exactly what you want tracked. The inside box tells After Effects to really pay attention to this area, and then the bigger box is kind of like, if you get lost, you can start paying attention to in here too. So what I'm going to do is drag those boxes by clicking on the inside box. And I'm going to drag it down to our yellow tape. And I am going to resize the inside box to just a little bit bigger than the tape. And then this box, we can do whatever we feel like we need to do. Let's go back over to the right-hand side of the screen. And motion source is the GoPro footage. Current track is the tracker 1. Okay, perfect. Track type, I'm going to leave it at transform, because basically what we're doing in After Effects terms, what we're doing is we are transforming the position of the null object, or therefore anything that's attached to this null object. We're going to do the position rotation and scale, all of that stuff is when you have way more tracking dots and stuff. After Effects has a way to be able to adjust the tilt and the rotation of different things, but that's not what we're here for. Okay, so we're just gonna make sure that position is checked. Motion target, motion data. Okay, so I'm gonna edit target, and this is where we wanna make sure that our null object is selected. So make sure that it says motion data, which is down here, the same exact null object. So I'm gonna hit OK. And you can go and take a look at the options too. Like you can track according to RGB or luminance or saturation. If I see that After Effects is struggling a little bit, I might change that. But for the most part, I just leave it at luminance. Click OK. Right here next to Analyze, we have a back button. That back button will let us analyze the motion one frame at a time going backwards. And the same thing with the play button, it'll actually automatically track going backwards. The next one over is the play button, so it'll analyze going forwards. And then again, if we needed to refine something, we can go step by step, frame by frame, and have this do that track. I think that our yellow is contrasted enough from the gray of the seat where we don't really need to get too fancy. This is where pre-planning and actually having different colored duct tape really comes in handy. So all I'm gonna do is click this play button here, and then we'll see it starting to analyze. And this is gonna take a couple minutes, so I'm just gonna go ahead and let this do its thing, and I will come back when we're done. After Effects just finished doing its thing, and I was watching, and I didn't see any real floating there. It didn't lose our tracker at all. So what I'm going to do is make sure that it says tracker 1, okay, and I'm gonna hit apply. Once we hit apply, what's gonna happen is After Effects is gonna take all of that motion data, all the X and Y movement, and it's going to apply it to our null object that we have labeled motion data. So now let's grab an animated character that we made in Character Animator. And what I'm going to do is just drag that to the library there. And it's going to use Adobe's dynamic link. My Character Animator file has 2 different scenes in it, and the one that I need is production 2. And now all I'm going to do is drag that down to the composition. This is something you have to keep in mind. If you import your Character Animator file and you drag it to the composition and you don't see it, it might be because the composition is a little bit longer than your Character Animator file. So for example, here I don't see any characters, but if I drag to the left, there's my character. Well, first off, let's go ahead and lock both of these layers, the motion data and the actual video. Now this might not look right because this animation was done for a scene inside, like inside this room, but it's enough to give us an idea of what we're trying to do. What I'm going to do is scale that up, and I'm going to hit the shift key so I can constrain its proportions, and then I'm going to move this over to make him look like he's sitting in the seat. Now I'm going to open up the motion data. Actually, what I want to do is tap on motion data and hit P for position. And you see how this stopwatch is already clicked and it's blue? It just basically means that there's some animation happening there. I'm also going to do the same thing with our puppet. And what I'm doing is I click on that layer and then I hit P for position. Now I'm going to grab this pick whip for the character and I'm going to drag it down to the position of motion data. So if you notice, when I link them together, the puppet moved down and basically almost out of the entire scene. And all that is the rotation point, or the center point for that character needs to be adjusted. What you can do is come up here, the pan behind tool, or Y is the shortcut. I'm gonna hit Y. Notice how your mouse cursor has changed. What I'm going to do is drag that down and off to the side just a little bit. Okay. And that looks pretty good. So if we go all the way to the beginning, and let's go ahead and drag this over here so we don't have to loop the entire thing. So now, if I hit the space bar, and let's take a look again, and you see how the character is now actually attached to the car. He's not floating around, and all of the bumps that the car is doing, his body is affected by that because of the tracking that we did. And so with this technique, you can either interact with a cartoon character, or you can just have some computer take over your car, and then, you know, the windshield would then be super fancy. If you learned something in this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you know anyone else that's looking to get into visual effects, filmmaking, animation, please send this video on over to them. And if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. And if you notice, there's a little bell right next to the subscribe button. If you click that, every time I come out with something new, you'll be alerted. And that way we can learn how to do animation, filmmaking, all this good stuff all together. Real quick shout out to the homie, Josh. Yo, it was a blast. Thank you so much for letting me come in and help with this amazing project. Holla at your boy if you need anything else. You know, we out here doing things. All right, everyone. I hope this video finds you safe, and I hope this video finds you healthy. And I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty good about things. Like, there's a lot of creative things that are starting to come out, and we can do all of this stuff together. All right, take care. See you later.